Hello everyone. I'm going to demonstrate API Manager product capabilities in this demonstration video. Uh, so in the first example, I'm going to explain how you can create integration and the streaming services using the tools we offer with the API Manager product. So I have planned to cover 3 different implementations. So my first implementation is to read database tables and expose employee data to outside as a service and the API. And in my second scenario, I have 3 different backends. They are returning XML, JSON, and the SOAP payloads. So I'm going to combine them together and offer them as a single JSON response. Okay, so in my third scenario, I have Kafka event source. I'm going to consume that Kafka event source and expose that to outside as a Websocket API. So these are 3 different scenarios I'm going to implement. And if you look at the demo script, in the E3 section, there was a requirement to create API from the existing source. So to demonstrate that, I am going to use create API using the data source. Okay. In C2 also, it was highlighted API mediation. So we are going to cover API mediation with our second sample I'm going to demonstrate here. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to open Integration Studio. So Integration Studio is a graphical drag and drop easy to use tool offered with WSO2 API Manager, and you can use this to design and develop your integration services and APIs. Okay, so demonstrate the database reading part. I have started employee data service DBS. So here we can configure transport settings, how you're going to expose your service. Then you can configure your data source. When you configure your data source, you can provide driver class, URLs, username and password. And then you can write your database queries. I mean, what you need to execute against that database. So here you can see I have written some queries to read employees table from this data source. Okay. So now I have 5 different queries. Then I'm going to create HTTP resources. So something similar to what we do when we design REST API, we need to come up with resource path and HTTP method, then link above mentioned queries to uh, these HTTP resources. So if you open here, you can see you can set the resource method and the query ID, then link them together. Okay, so now I have completed my data service. So now this data service is ready to deploy. We can simply export this as a Carbon application and deploy that within a micro integrator runtime. And if I go to my second scenario, like I mentioned earlier, I need to communicate with different backend and get different payloads and convert them into JSON. So to do that, I have started API project, and inside that we have resource. So inside this resource, I am calling multiple backends. So I call my first backend, then the second, then the third backend, and I collect all the responses, aggregate them together, and convert them into JSON and respond back to my client. So if you look at my right side, you will see the tool palette. So I'm going to use this tool to develop any of these integration flows. Actually, I have used them. So if you have any requirement, you can have a look at on this and refer them. Okay, so I have completed my integration flows. So basically sample 1 and 2 already completed. So now I'm going to implement my streaming integration sample. Okay, so to do that, I need to visit this IDE tooling, web browser based tooling. So this is streaming integration tooling that I started. So here I can click on create new service. Then I have already created some service definition. I'm going to copy that here. Okay. Okay, so I have created this now, and I can save this configuration here. Kafka to Websocket sample. I'm going to replace this, and then I can click on Async API view. Then I can select WebSocket server. click here, convert this to async API. So that is the async API definition for my service. So I'm going to add my async API definition. Now, if you go to code view, you will see this is also added. So I can save this. Now I can deploy this to server. So when you deploy this to server, you can select the project and you can select the runtime. Then you can deploy your service to that runtime. So I have deployed this service, and also previously I created the micro integrator one. So I'm going to deploy that as well. So now I have deployed all three services I developed. Okay. So now let's go to API publisher. So this is the API publisher. Here I have logged in as API provider. So API publisher is the place which allows you to design and develop your APIs and manage them using the user interface. Okay, so if you go here, you will see different services. So when you go to services, you can see some of the services I just now created. So that means when you create and deploy service into micro integrator, it will automatically wire into API manager through the service catalog, and you can convert them into APIs using the API manager. So for example, if I want to convert my employee service into API, I can click on this one, create API, and click on the create API. Just like that, I can convert my employee service into employee API with one click. So then I can deploy this employee API. Then I can try out this API if need to see whether it's working fine or not. Then once you are confident about the this API, we can finally publish this API. Okay, so this is how you can develop integration service using uh, integration studio or the streaming editor and deploy them into micro integrator or the streaming integrator. So that is the service implementation part. And also you can see those services, you can convert them into APIs within just one click using API publisher. Okay, so next I'm going to cover API create option. So in the A1 section, there was a requirement to create API from the open API definition. So I'm going to cover that part. So here I'm going to create open API option. So I can provide my open API definition here. So I have provided this. Okay, this is my timetable API. Okay, timetable. So I provided my backend and I can create API. So once you create API, it goes here. You can see develop, deploy, test flow. So we route our users through this journey. So once you start development, you can develop. Then once you're confident, you can deploy, and then you can test your API. So once your testing completed, you can publish your API. So I'll quickly walk you through each of these steps. So in your left menu, you see these four options. So if you go to portal configurations, inside the basic information, you can provide image for your API, and also you can provide who can see your API, who can access your API, and what are the URLs of your API, likewise different data associated with your API. Then you can provide business information, basically who are the business owners and things like that. Then you can provide the subscriptions. So basically, when users subscribe to your API, what is the quota that they allow? That information you can provide. Then you can associate document for your APIs with this, and then you can comment about your API and also reply to comments on your APIs. So that's about the portal configuration part. And if you go to API configuration, we have request response fault path. So in the request path, we have transport level security, HTTP, HTTPS, disable part, mutual SSL, you can configure them here. Then comes the application level security. You can set OAuth to basic API keys and different authentication mechanism. And if you have more than one key manager, those will be appear here, and you can select one of them. So for example, if you have external key manager, that will appear here, and you should be able to select that as well. Then you can set the course configuration for this API. then you can enable, disable schema validation. So schema validation means when we get API request, we can validate that request against API contract or the open API definition. So if you enable this one, it will validate your request against the open API definition models and the information provided. Then let's discuss a little bit about the API mediation. So API mediation is something we need to discuss under C2. So here you can provide some of the existing mediation policies. So there are some policies to convert message, validate payload, validate some of the content. So likewise, there are some out-of-the-box policies available. Let me open one of them and explain. So here you can see the JSON validator. Here we can provide property count, length, maximum length, likewise different JSON properties you can provide here. And once you enable this one, when we get the request, we validate request payload against to this validation logic. So that means with this JSON payload checks, you can block some attacks like entity expansion, cohesive parsing, XML bomb, that sort of attacks you can block. And also with the regex policy, you can block SQL injection and some other common attacks as well. And if you need to do simple message conversion, then of course you can do that as well. And at any time, if you need some more capabilities, you can write your own custom policy and upload that. Okay. So in the response path also, we have message mediation policies similar to the request path. And in addition to that, we have caching here. So in the caching, you can enable the caching and set cache validity period. So if you go to demo script in the F3 section, there was a requirement to demonstrate the caching capabilities. So this is how you can enable the caching. So in the fold path also, you can engage mediation policies like this. So now if we go to resources, these are the different resources available in your API. You can associate different security, description, summary, those things you can associate. Then you can see your API definition. You can download it, import it. You can do these things here. Then this is your API endpoint view. So you can provide REST endpoint, SOAP endpoint, dynamic endpoint. Either you can prototype your implementation here, or else you can use AWS Lambda as an endpoint. And also when you configure endpoint, you can come up with different suspension configuration, endpoint suspension, how you're gonna suspend your endpoint, that configuration you can provide. And also if you have multiple endpoints, you can configure them in load balance or failover manner. So these are the configurations related to load balance, failover configuration. And also if you need any certificates to communicate with backend, then you can add those certificates here. Okay, so let me discuss a little bit about the scopes. So scope means something you can attach to your resources and link with the roles or any other authentication mechanism. So here we are using scopes to define the fine-grained access control for your resources. So you can create resources, associate roles for the resources using this UI. Then API properties are some simple key value pairs. So if you want to store any metadata along with the API, you can use this property. And monetization, we are going to discuss in different place. So now I'm not going to discuss about that. So now once we completed development part, we can deploy our API. So I'll click on this one. So now this deploy revision 1. So now if I need to deploy another revision, I can set revision 2 and select the gateway and deploy this API. Okay. So this API revision 2 created. At any point, if you see anything went wrong with the revision 2, we can always revert back to revision 1. And also we can deploy multiple revisions in different gateways without an issue. So then once our deployment complete, as a developer, I may need to try my API and see how this is working. So to do that, I can generate this internal API key, and using that I can invoke API and see how my response. So this response is coming. So now I'm pretty confident about my API. I can go ahead and publish my API. So once I publish my API, this will be visible to outside world as well, and people can consume my API. Okay, so I'm going to publish this API. So now this API is published, and anyone else can see this API, and they can use this API. Okay, so then I'll move into API product concept. So basically, how you can create API product. So this is something we need to discuss under B1. So there we have some instructions to create API product using available APIs. So this is how you can create API product. So I'm going to name that product as a train info. Then I'll go ahead and create. So as of now, I have two APIs. So from the employee info API, I'm going to select one resource, and the timetable also, I'm going to select one resource. So now I have two resources from two different endpoints, and I'm going to create my API product. So now this API product created and published, and due to any reason, if I need to change the configuration, business information, or the subscription tiers, these things I can change and update my API. Okay. So this is how we can create API product by combining multiple APIs. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, you can associate different policies, documents, and the other configurations for your API products and monetize them separately. Okay. So then with that, we just covered B1, and then I will explain how you can use other alternatives to REST API. So that is something we need to discuss under E3 section. So in the E3 section, we have to discuss about the alternatives to REST API. So I created the API with the Open API definition. So as you can see here, we have other options. So GraphQL streaming and the service catalog. So now if I go to create GraphQL API, so GraphQL again, rapidly used by the mobile developers because of the flexibility we have there to query as we need and get the exact data what we need. Okay, so you can provide the GraphQL schema like this, and then go ahead and create your API. Since I have already created this API, I am not going to create this API, and something similar to that, you can use the streaming API as well. So Async API is the specification, and the streaming APIs are quite popular among the developer communities. So under the streaming API, we do support WebSocket, Webhook, and the SSE APIs, and you can start any of these things with the Async API definition. So something similar to previous case, you can start with Async API definition and convert that into API. So you can move ahead with this, provide this information. So since we completed this step before, I won't go into detail. So I'll walk you through already created API, right? So if you go to my GraphQL API, you see that is already developed, deployed, and published. And if you go to API configuration and the runtime, you see my endpoints are GraphQL endpoints, right? And if you go to operations, then you can see we can set the rate limiting in the API level or the operation level. So if you set in the operation level, you will see different operations we have here. We can set the policies according to these operations. And you can see your definition here, and this is my endpoint. Okay, so that's about the GraphQL. And if you go to my WebSocket API, you can see here in the WebSocket also we provide the WebSocket URLs, WS URLs for this one, and then we can set only key manager configurations here, and here also you can see different topics associated with this one. Enable, disable security per topic basis also available. So that's how we can create WebSocket API. So now let me quickly go to developer portal and log in here and see how these APIs we can use. Okay, so these are the APIs we have in our system. So if you want to use this GraphQL API, you can click on here. You can subscribe to this API, and then you can go for tryout option, obtain test key, and here you can provide your different queries that you need to execute. Okay, so with the GraphQL, the flexibility is providing this graphical editor. So for example, if I need to get this information, I can pass this query and get the response. And if I don't need the train type, then probably I can remove that and I will get only exactly what I need. So something similar to that, we can Websocket API and any other API types as well. Okay, thank you very much.